So I was fingering my butthole. Oh, wait. Are we recording? Whoops.
Caught you.
I'm doing it right now.
While you're drinking your wine. Are you using your little tool, your multifunctional wine tool to finger your butt?
I've got it in right now.
Oh my God.
Well, this will be a fun intro for new listeners. Just a taste of things to come.
Well, good news. I finally figured out how to keep the dings coming off when people message me on Messenger. So that's good. I've tried it a couple of times. I upgraded my OS, and I think it's a new feature that they put on there that you can actually turn off that sound. And so I did. And now somebody just messaged me, and I didn't hear a ding.
Nice. Listeners will enjoy it. I appreciate that.
Yes, because you know how irate I get whenever that happens.
Thanks, Susan. Always
Yes, exactly. Stop messaging me about this hurricane in the Caribbean.
I like your shiny bikini. It looks like I have a shiny thong on right now. It's
Do
sort
you
of
really?
yeah.
It's like a periwinkle color, but it's kind of coming off as silver a little bit. Yeah, thank you.
I
I
like it.
decided to go a little shiny today.
Does it come in men's?
No, it doesn't, but yeah. But I'm feeling a little shiny today. I just made plans to go with a friend to Key West next week for a little getaway. So if all goes well, I'll be gone from here for, a few days, which will be nice to get away from the store and just, Miami in general. I know Key West seems like it's really close, and it is, but it's only like 180 miles away, but it takes like 3.5, 4 hours to get down there because most of it is a 2-lane road, and there's like a bridge that's like 7 miles long. And
yeah,
it's just about more about taking your time and taking it all in because it's a really beautiful drive. So anyway, excited about getting away for a few days with friends.
Taking it all in.
Yes, I'm going to take it all in while I'm there. So, oh goodness, I guess we should introduce ourselves. It's been just a second.
I'm Blake Roberts.
And I'm Amanda Kamada, and this is Forbidden. I hope everyone has enjoyed our first series on abductions. So far, I think it kicked off with a bang, and I love the trailer that we did, and I'm sure other people are enjoying it as well. And I thoroughly enjoyed your abduction story. As crazy as it was, I got to tell you, I don't know if I didn't know if I could top it, so I don't know if I'm topping it. But I might be going in lining with it because the one I have to share this evening is quite disturbing in a lot of ways.
Well, top it with lube. Hopefully I won't cry this time. I cried like throughout the last one.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is as I was reading through mine today, there are some really sad parts to it. And I was like, am I going to cry? And then I thought, my heart is so cold that I just don't know if I have it in me
It's just like
to
your
cry.
bikini. It's just like
Yeah.
a steely blue.
Yeah. Steely blue heart.
Reflecting emotions.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, how have you been since the last time I saw you? How was your weekend?
Oh, it was good. I don't remember. I think.
Oh, didn't Megan have a birthday? Our Megan.
That's why I don't remember.
Whoa. So tell me how that went. Apparently it went smashing. I wished her a happy birthday on Instagram, and she was like, I wish you were here to come drinking with us. And I was like, yeah, me too. But then I was like, or maybe I don't know.
Yeah. No, it was fun. It was a long day. I met up with her and Bob. You know Bob.
Of course.
Bob, for listeners, Bob is Megan's boyfriend, and he also filmed our abduction trailer that is on social media right now.
And donated his VW bus for the shoot.
That's right, yeah. So the three of us went out for lunch, and of course, lots of drinks. So we rolled up at this restaurant. I think it's called the Windsor, and I think that's what it's called. I never remember. Anyway, like everyone on staff there is gay. So the host is like super stylish. he had this really cool, I don't know if it was a polo or a button up, I can't remember, but it was a collared shirt and it was like heavily textured and like an olive green. And he was just like a beautiful black man. So like it looked really good on his skin tone.
I'm sure, and it probably
Um,
fit him really nicely, and I bet he had good pecs.
yes, very nice
Mhm.
body. He's very handsome. And they kept joking that he was like giving us special treatment because I was there. And I was like, no, 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 no. And then he like comped us a free round of drinks, like for no reason. I was like, okay, maybe I had something to do with that.
Well, maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how we started the day.
Oh,
And
boy.
then we went out to another bar called Sazerac, which is like an unofficial gay bar. And that was fun. And then we went to another bar, and this is where it starts to get a little hazy for me. We came back to my house to pick up the karaoke machine.
Yes.
It lost a wheel somewhere in transit, but it's fine. It worked fine.
Sustained an injury.
Yeah. Picked up burritos, like fast food burritos, and then went over to Bob's house and sat outside and did karaoke.
That is amazing.
And I
I'm
don't know
sure
what
his
time.
neighbors appreciated that.
I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. But it was fun. And Megan took a photo of me with one of the microphones like going into my butt. Not like literally into my butt. I had pants on. But it was like we were getting sassy. And she was like, I'm gonna send this to name redacted to one of my colleagues who is
Oh, my.
also our HR manager at work. So she came into my office and she was like, Blake, we need to talk about this. She was joking.
Oh,
She
my
thought it was
god.
funny.
I was just like, "Oh, my god. Megan, causing problems."
Yeah. I was like, I'm gonna use that as my LinkedIn profile picture. Now seeking new opportunities and dead.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Adult industry opportunities.
Yeah. So how about
Mhm.
you? What did you do this weekend?
You know, on Friday night, I actually caught up with a couple of friends of mine who were in town from Seattle, which was really fun. We just caught up for a couple of drinks. They were in Miami for a couple of days. They were getting on a cruise ship, that Icon of the Seas, the largest cruise ship in the world. They have 3 children, and
Ew.
so yeah, but they're lovely people. Their kids were actually very sweet. I met them for like 5 minutes, and then they gave them ice cream and told them to go back to their room. And so then we sat in the hotel bar area and had a couple of drinks, which it was actually really nice catching up with them because I had not seen them since I left Seattle. And I left Seattle in 2014, which is now 10 years ago. And when I left, I made sort of an Irish exit out of that place to Seattle, or excuse me, to New York. Because I was going through a divorce, like it was one of those things where it took me 8 months to prepare to move to New York from Seattle because I had been in Seattle for 12 years. So it's not like I can just like pick up and move. Like I had a home, I had 3 dogs, I had a divorce I had a lot of baggage, and a lot of like loose ends to tie up before I left there. So by the time I felt like I was ready to go. I just wanted to leave,
Mhm.
and they totally got that, whenever I saw them. But we picked up right where we left off, sort of thing. They're a lovely couple, but it was kind of fun to like catch up on the Seattle gossip, what's going on with people who I was, in these friend groups with. They asked me, about my divorce and told me like the stories that they had heard about it and, were they accurate or not? And they were pretty accurate, but I was able to give them like the full story, which I will totally share sometime on this. It'll be more of a talk of shame as to how I caught my husband cheating on me and all that kind of stuff because they knew that I had caught him cheating on me, but they thought it was in San Francisco and it was not. But
Mhm.
so there were pieces of the story that were correct, but it's like a game of telephone.
Yeah.
And I have no idea who they heard it from because I don't personally recall telling anyone in that specific group, the entire story of how it all transpired, but somehow it made it around. And
Yeah.
I love that because it was really funny because her husband was just like, "I know that that was, like, a really hard time for you, but wasn't that also just kind of amazing to be able to catch someone in, like, the act?" And I was just like, "Oh my god, it was the best." I was like, "It was just so empowering," you know? And he was like, "And look at you now." He was like, "You've lived in New York, you're living in Miami Beach, like running a swimsuit shop." He was like,
Mhm.
"You win." So it was really fun. I'm actually going to have like a proper dinner with them when they return from the cruise, because that night they only had about an hour and a half to really meet. So we're going to meet up and have a proper dinner and speak a little more before they're going after this. Man, they must be blowing some quan on this trip because they came to Miami first. They are going on the Icon of the Seas for a week with their 3 children. Then they're coming back to Miami where they're gonna stay for, I think, an extra night or 2, probably just to, kinda decompress from the cruise. And then they're taking their kids to Orlando, so I'm sure they're doing the whole Disney thing. But I guess if you're traveling all the way from Seattle to Florida, you may as well, just knock it all out at once. So,
Yeah.
anyway, I can't imagine it's an inexpensive trip. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
But good on them for affording it. So I caught up with them and then didn't do much on Saturday, kind of just laid out by the pool for a bit and read, and then Sunday worked the shop. So that's about as interesting as it got. But it was nice catching up with, it's always nice catching up with old friends,
Yeah. And
Yeah.
for new listeners, I should say, when Amanda says work the shop in air quotes, that means the street corner. So,
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, I work the street corner on Collins Avenue between, like, 13th and Espanola Way. So, it's 1425 if you wanna stop by, that's the corner I work.
real cheap.
Yes,
We'll
very
do
cheap,
anything.
anything. Particularly if you're wealthy and 95 or over and have no living relatives.
You
Then it's free.
she wants you to be wealthy, but she doesn't want any of your wealth. So,
Mhm.
just give her
It's
all the
free, it's
SUVs.
free. I'll just give you the sample. You'll wanna bring me in for good, and then, there we go.
And then she'll suck you dry. I mean, drain you dry.
Exactamundo.
I hope my mom is listening right now.
Me? 3. I'm sure mine is, actually.
Just kidding. My mom wants nothing to do with this.
Oh my god. Do you guys have any big plans for the 4th of July?
No, and I'm so excited. I've already told Josh, no housework, no nothing. We are going to be in the pool,
No
we cook out,
Depot?
no running to Home Depot. We're gonna
Mm,
watch like Jaws or something and just drink, food, pool.
yes.
Oh, I'm having pool problems. I'll save that for our talk of shame though.
God, okay. That never sounds good.
Yeah. Well, should we dive into abductions part two?
Yes, absolutely. And, I want to go ahead. I kind of alluded to how crazy this story is at first and upsetting. So I want to warn everyone that there are some pretty graphic and disturbing content to come. But it's a story sort of like yours that is, truly disturbing, but also has, some points in it where you're like, wow, this is really worth listening to because this woman you just can't imagine what she actually went through. So, this isn't another abduction of a woman. It is actually the abduction of Elisabeth Fritzl. Don't know if you have heard of Elisabeth Fritzl, but
Mhm.
my sources are Wikipedia, the website ATI, which is All That's Interesting. This actually happened abroad, so most of my information came from like news articles and stuff like that that were written about it. But there have also been a couple of movies made and that sort of thing about it. So I'll give a list of those at the end. I didn't personally watch any of them for this, but I definitely would love to see how the story is reinterpreted into a movie.
Yeah.
So without further ado, let's talk about Elisabeth Fritzl and her abduction. So in April of 2008, a 42-year-old woman named Elisabeth Fritzl escaped captivity and told police in the city of Amstetten in Lower Austria. So this is happening in the southern part of Austria, that she had been held for 24 years. So she's 42 years old. She's been held for 24 years. So that's since 1984.
That's crazy.
Yes.
I was 2.
Yeah, I was like 8. I was
God,
8
she
years old.
probably liked like Madonna and Cyndi Lauper and Prince.
I know, because she was 18 when she was abducted. So she's 42 years old. It's 2008, April of 2008. She had been held since 1984 in a hidden basement cellar and had 3 children hidden with her. A seemingly unbelievable and horrifying story would be told by Elisabeth to the authorities that started a fast moving investigation leading to the end of 24 years of hell she had endured. So, a little bit of background on her. From what I could surmise, it seemed like she was the only child of Rosemary and Joseph Fritzl. Elisabeth experienced abuse beginning when she was 11 or 12 years old by her father. Never really got into the type of abuse that she endured, but not surprisingly, when she was a teen, she would run away from her home in Stenton, Austria for short periods of time, but was always returned home. So she lived in a fairly chaotic home that she was trying to escape. So when she disappeared or left her home suddenly in 1984 at the age of 18, few were surprised. Some thought that she had moved, up and moved to another city to, like become a waitress or something and flee Amstetten and her abusive upbringing. But her father told people she had run away to join a cult. So, she was never really reported missing per se to like authorities or anything. Now, she was when she would run away when she was younger, but she was 18 and her father said that she had more than likely run away to join a cult. And, being 18, you're kind of in an adult stage where if you want to leave and go somewhere and not tell your asshole dad who abused you where you're going, you obviously have the right to do so. And in the 80s, I mean, even being 18 and in Europe seems much more old than it is here, because in Europe, it feels like they start working and stuff a little bit earlier than people do. They can start drinking at the age of 18, that sort of thing. So you feel even more like an adult than you would in the US. There so when her father said she had run away to join a cult, and then there were these other stories going around as to, where she could be, it wasn't like a thing where someone said she was snatched or,
Mhm.
something like that. So there wasn't really an investigation done as to, where she was or, why she wasn't there anymore. But in reality, her father had secretly been building an elaborate cellar in his home specifically to imprison her.
Her
So,
other?
so how was she abducted by her own father, her,
Wow, that's crazy.
who told people she had run away to join a cult? In August of 1984, Joseph told Elisabeth that he needed help installing a new door in the basement of their home. She followed him down the stairs to an area deep in the cellar. When she was distracted, he subdued her and tied her to a bed. Thus, her captivity began. For the next 24 years, She was held a prisoner in the cellar, unbeknownst to her mother, Rosemary, who lived upstairs. She experienced constant rape, physical, and psychological torture. He would go to the basement nearly every day or at a minimum of 3 times a week to rape her, bring food and supplies to her. Her rapes resulted in the birth of 7 children, the first one arriving about 5 years after her abduction. So for the first 5 years, she was by herself that entire time in the cellar, right? And then she finally got pregnant. So she had 7 children with him during this 24 years that she was in captivity. 3 remained in captivity with Elisabeth. 1 died shortly after birth and was cremated by her father. So he took the baby from her when it died and cremated it. And the other 3 were raised by her father and his wife, Rosemary, after he had convinced her and the authorities that they were foundlings. So basically, he told her that these were children who had been abandoned on their front porch. Presumably, he believed by Elisabeth, who had dropped them off secretly after giving birth to them while in the cult. So basically, he decided that 3 of the children would be raised upstairs and 3 would be raised downstairs. So he told his wife and the authorities when these kids showed up on his doorstep that it was probably Elisabeth who was in the cult, dropping off these children to be taken care of by her parents and leaving them on their doorstep. Are you confused yet?
I am.
And troubled.
Yes. I mean, there's a few questions. The first of which, the wife's name is Rosemary.
That's right.
So does she ever question the fact that 6 or 7 children
3.
show up?
Only 3 children.
Okay, 3 children show up, and she just happens to not be at home when they show up every time? Like, does she have a job, or
Right.
how did he handle that, I wonder?
I know. And it
So
seems like he
crazy.
must have been very controlling person, and it'll kind of bubble up a little bit more, as I talk about it. So basically, she's being held downstairs with 3 of those children. 3 of her children are being raised upstairs. And I don't even know if she knows this at this point. He just takes them from her because she is downstairs in the cellar area. So, following the 4th child's birth, which was in 1994, so about 10 years after she was abducted, her father allowed an expansion of the area they were being held captive in. So the area initially that they were being held in this cellar was 380 square feet. So if you can imagine 4 people living in 380 square feet, he allowed them to expand it to 590 square feet, putting Elisabeth and her children to work digging out soil with their bare hands for years to do this. So let's talk a little bit more about this prison that they were in, because you kind of wonder, like, how in the hell did someone not know that these people were down there? Right.
Right.
Right. It was located behind a shelf in Fritzl's basement workshop, protected by an electronic code using a remote control unit. In order to reach the door, 5 locking basement doors had to be crossed. 5.
Whoa.
Yes. To get to the area where Elisabeth and her children were held, 8 doors in total need to be unlocked, of which 2 doors were additionally secured by electronic locking devices. So he built this pretty deep back in. Like, it took 8 doors to get to where she was.
That must have been really expensive too, and time-consuming and expensive.
Right.
Do you know
And
what his career was, or?
well, I'll get to that in a
Okay.
minute. Yeah.
I'm just so
So,
curious.
yeah. They had a television down there, a radio, and a video cassette player.
Okay.
They had a refrigerator to store food and hot plates for cooking. Now, I will give them, at least they had a TV. I don't know how it would have ever worked though, because that's probably why they had the video cassette, because if you were that far in somewhere in a cellar, you're not getting any reception in the
Yeah.
80s.
Yeah, exactly.
You're barely getting reception in the 80s anyway, and there wasn't any fucking cable TV down there.
Right. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. God, I wonder what he got them to watch.
I wonder if he made him watch porn, or like if he brought him like nice stuff.
Old episodes of Father Knows Best.
Yeah, exactly. Oh god. So this is kind of sad, and like it says, while in captivity, Elizabeth taught her children to read and write. At times, her father would punish the family by shutting off their lights or refusing to deliver food for days at a time. He told Elizabeth and the three children who remained, their names were Kirsten, Stefan, and Felix, that they would be gassed if they tried to escape. Investigators later concluded that this was an empty threat to frighten the victims, as there was no gas supply to the basement, but how were they to know? He also told them that they would be electrocuted if they tried to tamper and escape through any of the cellar doors. So they were certainly, scared. According to Fritzl's sister-in-law, Christine, he went into the basement every morning at 9 a.m. to draw plans for machines which he sold to manufacturing firms.
Mm.
He often stayed there for the night and did not allow his wife in or to bring him coffee or food or anything. So one could understand. Well, let me say this too. They actually even had a tenant who rented the ground floor in the house for 12 years who claimed to hear noises from the basement, to which Fritzl dismissed, saying it was caused by faulty pipes or the gas heating system. It was said that his wife, Rosemary, had no idea of any of this that was going on, but some are not convinced of this theory. And I can go either way with that, because if he's a very controlling person, she has these three kids that he insists that their daughter, who had gone off and joined a cult, had dropped off, in their yard, or, whatever, that she was just abandoning children as she had them, and she was taking care of them. And he wouldn't allow her to go downstairs, even if she could go down to where his office was in the basement. It still took 8 doors to get to where these people were. you know
Mm.
so, and my guess is, if he drew plans for a machine, he was probably a mechanical engineer of some type. So
Yeah.
he probably used his engineering to reinforce, with concrete and noise canceling materials and those sorts of things, because he spent some time actually putting this together. I mean, this cellar didn't create itself overnight, right? So some are not convinced of the theory that she didn't know, but it could be possible that she didn't.
Yeah. There's also like potentially a certain level of just denial too.
Right,
Because
right.
the story, like factually, is unbelievable.
Truly.
So to be in the house for all those years, even if you think there's something weird going on, would you ever think like, oh, there's 4 people living in the basement for decades? You know what I
Right,
mean?
right. Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, who
So,
knows?
I mean, 24 years. So how did she finally escape? Well, in 2008, April of 2008, Kirsten, her 19-year-old daughter at this time, fell gravely ill. Being one of the downstairs children, she never had access to any proper medical care. So she was so sick that after some convincing, Elizabeth was finally able to get Joseph to take her to the hospital for help so she would not die. I mean, she was that bad off.
Wow.
When he took her to the hospital, given that she had no medical records, etc., and she was so ill, the doctors insisted that she see her mother, or that they see her mother. So Joseph then brought Elizabeth in under the guise that she had just been released from captivity from the cult that had held her for over 2 decades with her daughter. Okay, so she's 42 years old at the time, has a 19-year-old daughter. He brings her in and says that she has been released from this cult. However, when separated from her father, she told authorities that in fact she had been held all of this time by Joseph in the basement cellar. She told him about the cellar, the children, rapes, everything. He was immediately arrested on suspicion of rape, enslavement, deprivation of liberty, coercion, manslaughter by negligence, and incest. In March of 2009, he pled guilty to all counts and was sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 15 years.
What?
Yes. This is this European system. We were talking about the South African thing the
Yeah.
other day, and okay, so doing the math from 2009 to now, this is the 15-year mark. So I don't know what's going to happen with his parole, but he is eligible for parole this year, but he is still in prison at this time.
Do you know how old he is right now?
I don't. I
Maybe
don't. But
probably
he's
must
got to
be.
be pretty old if she was 42 when this happened, when she was actually released in 2008, it's 15 years from now. I mean, he's got to be like way elderly old at this
Yeah.
point. Yeah. So you may ask what happened to Elizabeth and her family after this. So they are fiercely guarded. Oh, sorry. So sorry, I got out of order here. Every member of the family was given a new identity and was sent to a small hamlet in the Austrian countryside known only as Village X. So they won't say where they are. Along with continued access to therapists and other medical experts, they were provided police protection as well as bodyguards, etc., to keep them safe. Their new home was equipped with CCTV surveillance meant to run 24/7. So, as for the children, the downstairs children were obviously in worse shape than the upstairs children because the upstairs children were raised basically by their grandparents and probably fairly normally. So 19-year-old Kirsten, who was the one that was very sick, eventually recovered from the drug-induced coma that they had her in. They never really said what was wrong with her, but my guess is probably just a lack of nutrition and everything, being because she required extensive dental treatment as she had lost all of her teeth.
Wow.
18-year-old Stefan, this is so sad, walks with the stoop because he was too tall to walk upright in the basement and was never able to grow properly. And 5-year-old Felix preferred crawling over walking, and they were all traumatized in different ways by from their imprisonment in the cellar. While the upstairs children, so 16-year-old Lisa, 14-year-old Monica, and 12-year-old Alexander, since they had been raised in comparatively normal conditions by their grandparents, were horrified to learn what Joseph had done to their mother and other siblings, and they suffered psychologically and stuff too from guilt, that all of this was going downstairs. But they still live in this Village X. They are fiercely guarded by
Do
their
they all
community.
live in the same place?
As far
Upstairs
as I
and
know,
downstairs children?
yes, they were
Oh.
all reunited.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. They were all reunited and went through all of this therapy and stuff together. So they live in this Village X. They are fiercely guarded by their community. who says they are doing well and that Elizabeth has even remarried. So all of these names that I gave with Elizabeth, their, the children's names and stuff like that apparently have been now changed.
Mm.
But the case was featured. Like I said, I would let you know where you could see more about it. So the case was featured in the 2008 documentary, The Longest Night: Secrets of the Austrian Cellar, and the 2010 documentary Monster: The Joseph Fritzl Story. There's a book written in 2009, The Crimes of Joseph Fritzl: Uncovering the Truth, by Stephanie Marsh and Bohan Penjevsky. And then Lifetime actually released in 2021 a film inspired by the Fritzl case. It's titled Girl in the Basement, which is part of Lifetime's ripped from the headlines feature film. So it's probably, not completely accurate. It's
Yeah.
basically based loosely off of this. But I would actually love to read the book, The Crimes of Joseph
Yeah.
Fritzl, because I didn't want to give him too much time, in this story, because I feel like this should be dedicated to Elizabeth and her strength, to the fact that she was raising her children. They had to be not only, they had to be like slowly introduced to even sunlight
Yeah.
and
Oh my.
all that kind of stuff, and to sounds, because they had never heard, sounds in the world, and that she was able to actually teach them to read and write, and be what kind of mother she could to them while they were all going through this absolute hell. Because since he was, always coming downstairs, threatening them, raping her in that small environment, they probably saw her being attacked and raped.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely heartbreaking. But another story of just someone that had the, tenacity to somehow get through 24 years of absolute hell,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah, but they did say that he had been suspected. They suspect that he had possibly murdered someone previously. You can read about that in the Wikipedia page, and that there were a couple of crimes that he was suspected of, but they could never really pin him to them. But what a monster, right?
Yeah. And I just kept thinking as you were telling that story, thinking about the kids, well, and Elizabeth, all four of them, and just like you said, no sunlight. Could you imagine being born and never seeing sunlight until you're 18
18,
years old
19, yeah. Or being
and
able to walk
walk?
upright because your ceilings were 5 foot or less,
And then
think of the cellar.
all of the other just little things to have to sort of acclimate to, like allergies.
Mhm.
And you've probably never had just like the common cold before.
No.
Like all these things, your immune system is probably completely
Oh, yeah.
susceptible to everything.
Yeah, they were obviously malnourished. I read that they were actually, for what they had been through, in pretty decent shape physically for
Mm.
all of those things, that had happened, but that, they required a lot, and probably still do require a lot of therapy. And, just I'm sure there are things that go on with their bodies that are, completely different than anyone else, because they did not have that vitamin D for years,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff like that. Now, one thing I guess that would come out of that is they probably haven't aged a lot. They may not have a lot of wrinkles, because
yeah, I mean,
they
they
had no
probably have
sunlight.
yeah, they probably have nice skin,
Very fresh skin.
like, sort of translucent, but, like,
Beautiful skin.
beautiful. Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
I guess that's a plus.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would take it, but
Yeah. But so, yeah, that was the story of the abduction and survival story, actually. Another survival story of abduction of Elisabeth Fritzl,
that
who
was
I'm sure definitely changed her last name, because I wouldn't want to be, you know, anywhere near
Yeah.
tied to that monster for the rest of my life.
Her name is now Elisabeth Fritzl.
Pretzel.
Just kidding. That was a great story, and it was insane.
Thank you.
I mean, we're out of the gate here. We've set a really high bar for ourselves.
Yeah. I had a hard time deciding because I had a couple of ones that I wanted to do, but I remember distinctly when this happened and how, you know, I feel like a lot of crazy shit sometimes happens in Europe, like things like this that are really dark,
Yeah.
and just truly unbelievable. And I remember this happening and thinking, oh my God, how in the hell did somebody, keep someone for 24 years in a cellar? And I thought about, not seeing the daylight and, just I'm so claustrophobic myself that I think I would have had a heart attack just, I mean, just how alone she must have felt being there for the first 5 years by herself and just waiting for him to come down and, assault her or
Mm-hmm.
terrorize her, whenever he felt like it. She was probably in some ways maybe thankful that she had her children when she did? I don't
I'm
know.
sure she was very conflicted because it must have been a great comfort to have your kids there with you, but also knowing that every time he comes down, they're going to witness something heinous.
And that those children are the product of incest. I
Yeah.
mean, oh my god, it's such a mind fuck,
Yeah. Yeah.
horrible.
God, there's got to be so many. I mean, of course, there are just so many elements to it that I can't even comprehend right now.
Mhm.
Just
Mhm.
all the things of being locked up for all of that time and not having any interaction.
And they didn't really get into, any of the specifics of what proclivities they may have from being products of incest, like you had that story about that family in
Whitakers, yeah.
West Virginia. And, it's obvious by, I've watched now some of their films and stuff like that, that there are, huge things that can happen with that. But just like with the Whitakers, their community that has surrounded them has really been protective
Oh,
of
yeah.
them,
Yeah.
and just really rallies behind them, tries to keep people away from them, so they can live somewhat of a normal life as possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would be interested to know and may do a little more research as a follow-up. I just didn't have time to see if any of her children have ever come out after this because this happened in 2008. If someone were 19 in 2008, they're probably in their 30s now. So they may have come like it would be just interesting to know where they are now, if they have decided to, come out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well done. That was very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think between our most recent episodes, we're up for some awards, you guys.
I'm hoping that this will really ramp up our listenership
Let's get a
because
Grammy award.
yeah, I'm probably going to get a Peabody or something for this.
I'm gonna get a Razzie.
Razzie. What's our Rotten Tomato
12%.
rating? Yes. Well, would you like to tell our listeners where they can continue to listen, rate, and review us?
Yes, you may listen, rate, review, and don't forget to hit subscribe on Apple and Spotify. And you can find us check out our website at theforbiddenpod.com. It is freshly updated with some scandalous and beautiful new photos, I might say, of us in our underwear.
And some new content, some updated, refreshed content on there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And then, of course, follow us on social media at The Forbidden Pod on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah.
not because we hate Elon Musk.
Yes. And please, please write in your grievances, write in your shame, write in your passions, write in your accolades to us at hello@theforbiddenpod.com.
Yes, please.
Well, Blake, thank you for listening to that story. I know that it was quite emotional, like to get through. It was emotional for me. I thought I was actually going to cry a couple times because,
Yeah, I could see it a little bit.
yeah, just the thought of her like teaching her kids how to read and write. I mean, I was just like, what a good little mom, like
Yeah,
some and being good to her children when she could have hated them and mistreated them because she was mistreated. Sometimes that abuse is a cycle, and
yeah,
she chose to be a good mother to them. So got a little choked up about that, but thank you for listening to
yeah,
that
of
today.
course. Thank you for sharing it.
And listeners, as always, thank
Thank
you.
you.